Hello, the Pioneer viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. In a moment, we will discuss the latest developments on the front line with a map. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces have suffered a heavy blow in Kherson. There are now developments in Krynki, which the Russian army has been working on for a long time. Also on the Donetsk front line, Ukrainian troops continue to show great success in defensive positions. All this and much more we will now analyze in our report. Let's get started. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you all the latest on Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications in order not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my hardworking team by using the super thanks button below the videos. Thank you in advance for your support. The Pioneer reports. We start with the hot developments on the Kherson front line. According to the latest reports, on the Kherson front line, the Ukrainian armed forces have made significant progress in expanding the bridgeheads at Krynki on the left bank of the Dinipro river. According to the latest reports, Russian attacks in this area have been largely halted. The Russian army, which suffered heavy losses during the offensives, was forced to stop its attacks. We often state that this region is important. Ukrainian dominance in the direction of Krynki is like a spear through the heart of the Russian occupation. As we have already mentioned, the Ukrainian army is planning a new counteroffensives next summer. This time it is claimed that the focus of these counteroffensives will be the Crimean Peninsula. So the offensives and the situation there is very important. The Ukrainian army has gained an important positions here by stopping the attacks of the Russian army. The silence of the Russian troops also confirms the successes of the Ukrainian army. Although Russian sources initially denied this, the silence in the region confirms the successes of the Ukrainian army. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. We don't observe any attacks by the Russian infantry units. Therefore, Russian artillery units were quite active today. According to reports of the artillery units of the Russian armed forces, they targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions in Chernobyivka, the regional center, and Tokarenivka and Novotingiivka, Krynki, Taganivka, Lviv, Bersilov and Novobersiv, Krosny, and Malaya Novovodarivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in Olapristan, Oleshki, Poima, Peshanovka, Cossack camps, and the Dnipro River Delta islets is very active these days. Let's continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces have resumed their offensives in the western part of the town of Verbotin. But the initiative is still in the hands of the Ukrainian army. We often state this in our reports. There is no way for the Russian army to succeed here in the short term. Therefore, they have to plan for a long term. But despite this, the Russian army is not learning from this situation. Nearly 3 months of the attacks by the Russian troops west of the town of Verbotin have not yielded any results, and nevertheless, they prefer not to change the strategy. The Ukrainian armed forces have made significant gains here as part of their counteroffensive operations. Therefore, these positions are quite well fortified. According to the latest reports, thanks to these fortified positions, Russian attacks were repelled. In the Verbov region, the initiative started to pass to the Ukrainian army. Here too, after a period of calm, Ukrainian troops regained the initiatives. Ukrainian troops are regularly targeting Russian positions here, and there have been no border changes so far. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Kamenskoye, Malayatokmakcha, Charnov, and Krasany. On the contrary, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in Novoprokopivka and Verbov. Let's continue with the latest developments in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces have formed another offensive area from the Prirodny direction towards Novodorovka. There is a great pressure on the Ukrainian troops here. Russian artillery units are also active here. So far, there are no recorders from the border changes. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions in Poltavka, Stromyorsk, Zolotoy, Niva, Perchihivivka, Vuhledar, and Volyodny. On contrary, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in Zavi, Vidnibozhania and Novodonetsk. Okay, now let's continue with the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces, supported by long-range weapons on the Donetsk front line, have launched attacks on the Novomikhailivka from the southeast and northeast. The situation there remains stable. On the other hand, we observe similar actions by the Russian armed forces in Gorogorivka, the town of Krasnohorivka and Nevelskoye. There is a slight progress in Gorogorivka and Krasnohorivka town. However, they are of no tactical value at the moment. Also near Pervomaisk, Russian troops continue their offensives. An intensive attack was carried out with artillery support, but to no avail. The situation in Avdiivka is also stable, but there are tough counter-battles on the southeastern outskirts. The Russian army continues to try to expand its position here, but the Ukrainian defense line is still resilient, and the Russian troops' breakthrough operations here are also failed. But also Russian troops have made gains in some places. According to the latest reports, Russian troops have slightly expanded the control east of Tesoroskaya Ochota fortifications. They are also attacking intensively in the northeast. The position of the Ukrainian armed forces in the city and under heavy fire from the long-range weapons of the Russian armed forces are still there, and however, they have not made any gains so far. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Konstantinivka, Yekateriniivka, Elizavetovo, and Pobeda, Korkhakov, Orlovovka, Stepnoy, Berdyachi, Rechetin, and Novokalinov. On the other hand, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in the Donetsk and the town of Krasnohorivka. There is a disturbing silence on the Bakhmut front line. In contrast, in the past days, we observe a quieter Bakhmut front line. There is a calm in all the areas where both armies have carried out long-range and large-scale attacks so far. Artillery units continue to fire at each other. Now it's your time. What do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will continue to expand its positions on the Kherson front line? And how will the Ukrainian army's successes here affect the front line? And do you think the losses of the Russian army will increase? Let me know in the comments, because you know that I read and I care about all the comments.